Have you ever been completely underestimated? Has someone ever assumed you were worth nothing based solely on your appearance? The story you're about to read will show you that the most extraordinary people are sometimes hidden behind the humblest uniforms, and that judging someone without knowing them can cost you far more than you imagine. The 38th floor of the Bancoma Tower in Polanco was the financial heart of one of the most powerful business empires in Mexico. Samuel Goldstein, a 62-year-old Jewish-Mexican tycoon, had built his fortune in real estate, technology, and finance. His office was a temple of success, contemporary art on the walls, a panoramic view of the city, furniture imported from Italy. That Thursday afternoon, Samuel was expecting a potential partner from Israel to finalize a $300 million deal. He was nervous, something unusual for him. This contract could expand his operations into Tel Aviv and Jerusalem, but he needed to make sure his team was prepared. "Jacobo," he said to his executive assistant, "I need to know if I can truly trust this team, if they're attentive to detail, if they're observant." "Sir, we've worked together for years." "I know," Samuel interrupted, "but I want to run a test, something that reveals who's really paying attention." Jacobo knew that look. Samuel Goldstein hadn't gotten where he was by being naive. He tested people, always in ways they never expected. That night, after everyone left, Samuel forgot strategic documents on his desk, contracts with deliberately incorrect clauses, financial reports with numbers that didn't match, all written in Hebrew. He wanted to see if anyone would notice, if anyone had the curiosity or the care to check them. What he didn't know was that someone would see them. That someone was Aisha Thompson. Aisha was 48 years old, with ebony dark skin and hands toughened by 15 years of cleaning offices. She had been born in Veracruz, in an Afro-Mexican family that barely survived. Her father died when she was 12, leaving her mother alone with 5 children. But Aisha was different. Since childhood, she had been voracious for knowledge. She read anything she could get her hands on: old newspapers, abandoned books, anything with words. At 16, a teacher noticed her potential and helped her get a scholarship to study at the library of the Jewish community in Veracruz. There, Aisha fell in love with Hebrew. The sound, the writing, the history, it fascinated her. She studied obsessively for years, using free materials, talking to community members. By age 20, she spoke Hebrew fluently. She had dreamed of studying languages at university, but life hit her hard. Her mother got sick. Her siblings needed food. Aisha took the first job she could find, night cleaning, and there she'd been for 15 years. That night, while cleaning Samuel's office, she saw the Hebrew documents on the desk. Her heart skipped a beat. It had been years since she'd seen Hebrew texts of that level. She couldn't help it. She started reading, and as she read, she noticed serious errors, contradictory clauses, mismatched numbers. If someone signed those contracts without reviewing them, they would lose millions. Aisha made a decision. She pulled out a small notebook from her pocket, and in her neat handwriting, wrote a note in perfect Hebrew. "Mr. Goldstein, with all due respect, I found several errors in these documents. Page 3, Clause 7, legal contradiction. Page 8, mathematical error in profit projection. Page 12, incorrect date that would invalidate the contract. I thought you should know. Aisha Thompson, cleaning staff." She left the note on top of the documents and finished her shift. The next day, when Samuel arrived at his office, he found the note. He froze. Samuel read the note 3 times. Then he reviewed the documents Aisha had pointed out. Every single thing she mentioned was absolutely correct. More than correct, they were the errors he had deliberately planted to test his executive team. His team of lawyers and financial analysts, all with master's degrees and PhDs, had noticed nothing. But a cleaning woman had spotted every error, and she had done it in perfect Hebrew. "Jacobo," Samuel shouted. His assistant rushed in. "Sir, who is Aisha Thompson?" "Who?" "Aisha Thompson says she works in cleaning." Jacobo frowned and checked his tablet. "Ah, yes, night shift cleaning staff. She's been with the external service company we hire for 15 years. I want to see her now." "Sir, she works night. She won't arrive until 10 p.m. Then get her number. Call her. Tell her to come immediately, and that we'll pay her a full day. I need to speak with her." Jacobo had never seen Samuel so shaken. He made the call. 2 hours later, Aisha arrived at the building. She had come directly from dropping off her youngest son at school. dressed in simple clothes, worn jeans, a white blouse, comfortable shoes. Her natural hair was pulled back into a ponytail. No makeup, no accessories. When the security guard told her Mr. Goldstein wanted to see her, Aisha panicked. Had she done something wrong? Was she getting fired for touching the documents? She went up to the 38th floor with her stomach in knots. The receptionist, a young light-skinned woman in designer clothing, looked her up and down with barely disguised disdain. "Are you here to clean?" "No. I have an appointment with Mr. Goldstein." The receptionist laughed. "Sure, Mr. Goldstein has an appointment with you. He called me," Aisha said firmly. "Of course. Sit over there," the receptionist said, pointing to the chairs in the far corner, as if Aisha might contaminate the place. Aisha waited 30 minutes. She watched as the receptionist greeted other visitors with smiles and coffee, while completely ignoring her. Finally, Jacobo came out. "Aisha Thompson." "Yes, sir. Come in, please." The receptionist nearly fell out of her chair. Aisha followed Jacobo into Samuel's enormous office. The tycoon was standing by the window, looking out at the city. He turned when she entered. For a moment, there was silence. Samuel studied her, and Aisha saw the surprise in his eyes. It was obvious he hadn't expected the author of that note to be a black cleaning woman. "Please sit," Samuel said at last, gesturing to a chair in front of his desk. Aisha sat on the edge, back straight, hands folded in her lap. Samuel held up the note. "You wrote this?" "Yes, sir." "In Hebrew?" "Yes, sir." "Where did you learn Hebrew?" Aisha took a deep breath. "In the Jewish community of Veracruz, sir. When I was a teenager, I studied on my own for years." "Why?" It was a simple question with a complex answer. "Because it fascinated me," Aisha said simply. "The history, the language, the culture. I thought it was beautiful. And because learning was the only thing no one could take from me." Samuel slowly sat down, his eyes never leaving her. "These documents," he said, pointing at the papers on his desk, "I left them here deliberately, with planted errors, to test my executive team. None of them noticed anything." "I understand, sir, but you did. Why did you read them?" "Because they were in Hebrew," Aisha said honestly. "It had been years since I'd seen Hebrew texts of that level. I couldn't help it. And when I saw the errors, I thought you should know. It was the right thing to do." Samuel studied her face for a long moment. "Speak to me in Hebrew," he suddenly ordered. Aisha blinked, surprised. Then she began to speak. In fluent, beautiful Hebrew, she told him about her childhood in Veracruz, about how she learned the language, about her love for languages and cultures. She spoke for 3 uninterrupted minutes. Samuel Goldstein, who had grown up in a Jewish family in Mexico, who had studied in Israel, who had spoken Hebrew since childhood, listened with his mouth slightly open. Aisha's Hebrew was perfect, more than perfect. It was poetic. When she finished, Samuel leaned back in his chair. "Why are you working in cleaning?" Aisha lowered her gaze. It was the question she had feared, the one that carried all the shame and pain of 15 years. "Because no one else would hire me, sir." "Explain." "I applied for jobs as a translator, interpreter, administrative assistant. I have certificates from my Hebrew studies, references from the Jewish community in Veracruz, experience translating religious texts. But," she stopped, biting her lip. "But when I showed up to the interviews, they saw my face, they saw my skin, and suddenly the position was already filled, or they had decided to go in a different direction." Samuel closed his eyes, knowing exactly what she wasn't saying. "One time," Aisha continued, her voice trembling slightly, "an HR manager told me straight. He said, 'You're very qualified, but our clients are high-profile people. We need someone with a more professional image.' What he meant was someone who wasn't black. That's racism." Aisha said it without bitterness, just as a fact. "Yes, sir, that's exactly what it is. But when you have children to feed and rent to pay, you don't have the luxury of fighting the system. You just survive however you can." "Family, 3 kids, sir, on my own. Their father left when the youngest was 2. My night cleaning salary barely gets us by, but it gets us by. All 3 are in school. My oldest wants to study medicine." Samuel looked at her with an expression Aisha couldn't decipher. "You speak Hebrew better than half my team. You caught errors that lawyers with doctorates didn't catch. What else can you do?" "I speak 5 languages, sir. Spanish, Hebrew, English, French, and basic Arabic. I can translate technical, legal, and religious documents. I understand finance because I've read every book I've found in libraries. When I clean these offices at night, I read the reports you all leave on the desks. I know how markets work, how investments work, how negotiations work. You've been studying while you clean. I've been studying my whole life, sir. It's the only thing that keeps me sane. Cleaning floors at night and learning everything I can during the day. Samuel got up and walked toward the window. When he spoke again, his voice was different, softer. My grandfather came to Mexico escaping Poland in 1939. He had nothing, no money, no language, no contacts, just the hunger to survive and work hard. He turned back to Aisha. He taught me that talent has no last name, no color, no bank account. It just exists. And my job is to recognize it when I see it. Aisha felt a knot form in her throat. I have a proposal for you, Samuel continued. Tomorrow, a partner from Israel arrives. We'll be negotiating in Hebrew. My current translator is competent, but after reading your note, I know you're better. I want you in that meeting. As the official translator, me sir, you. But there's one condition. Aisha waited, holding her breath. After that meeting, you accept a permanent position in my company, as Director of International Relations for Israel and Global Jewish Communities, with the salary and benefits that come with it. Aisha was speechless. Sir, I don't have an official university degree. You have something better. You have real knowledge, genuine passion, and the integrity to point out mistakes when no one else does. That's not something universities teach. Tears began streaming down Aisha's face. Why, sir? Why are you giving me this opportunity? Samuel smiled sadly. Because I've spent 15 years ignoring you. You've been here all this time cleaning my office, and I never saw you. I never asked your name. I never took a second to look beyond the uniform, and that makes me part of the problem. It isn't your fault. Yes, it is. Samuel interrupted firmly. It's exactly my fault, and the fault of everyone who has the power to hire, to give opportunities, and chooses to give them only to people who look like us, or match our preconceived idea of what success should look like. He walked back to his desk and extended his hand. So Aisha Thompson, do you accept this opportunity? Aisha looked at his hand, soft, manicured, the hands of a millionaire. Then she looked at her own, calloused, dark, worn from years of labor. But when she took his hand, they were equal. I accept, Mr. Goldstein. I accept. The next day, Aisha arrived at the building at 8 a.m. Samuel had sent his driver to pick her up, and had given her his corporate credit card with clear instructions. Buy professional clothes. Whatever you need. This is an investment in your future. Aisha went to Liverpool, and for the first time in 15 years, she bought new clothes. A dark grey tailored suit, silk blouses, professional shoes. She looked at herself in the fitting room mirror, and almost didn't recognize the woman staring back, not because of the clothes, but because of the expression on her face. She looked hopeful. When she entered Samuel's office, Jacobo led her to a conference room. He explained the details of the contract they'd be negotiating, the key points, the concerns of the Israeli partner. Mr. Goldstein trusts that you will handle the cultural nuances better than anyone, Jacobo said. Just don't disappoint him. I won't, Aisha promised. At 10 a.m., Eli Rothstein arrived, a real estate magnate from Israel. He was a 50-year-old man wearing a kippah, neatly trimmed beard, and carried an imposing presence. 2 lawyers accompanied him. Samuel greeted him warmly. They exchanged greetings in Hebrew, embracing like old friends. Then Eli saw Aisha. There was a visible moment of surprise. He clearly didn't expect to see a black woman on a high-level executive team in Mexico. Eli, Samuel said in Hebrew, I'd like you to meet Aisha Thompson, our Director of International Relations. Eli extended his hand politely, but Aisha could see the doubt in his eyes. Shalom, Eli said in Hebrew, his tone clearly testing her. He spoke fast, using Israeli slang, fully expecting her to need translation. Aisha smiled, and replied in perfect Hebrew, matching his modern Israeli accent flawlessly. Shalom, Adon Rothstein. How was your flight from Tel Aviv? I imagine it was a long one. Eli blinked, visibly stunned. You speak Hebrew fluently, Aisha replied, still in Hebrew. And if I may, I understand you have concerns about Mexican regulations for foreign investment. I prepared a summary in Hebrew, with all the updated legal changes from this year. She handed him a document. Eli took it, looked at the first page, and his expression changed completely. The meeting began, and for the next 4 hours, Aisha was extraordinary. Aisha wasn't just translating, she was anticipating problems, clarifying cultural misunderstandings, proposing creative solutions. When tension arose over arbitration clauses, Aisha realized the real issue was that Eli wanted arbitration to be handled under Jewish law, but didn't know how to bring it up without offending anyone. "Sorry to interrupt," Aisha said in Hebrew, "but are you concerned about how disputes would be handled under halakha, Jewish law?" Eli stared at her. "You know halakha. I studied religious texts for years," Aisha replied. "If you'd like, we can structure the contract to include an arbitration panel that respects both Mexican law and halakhic principles. There are international precedents. You can do that. I already prepared a proposal." Aisha opened her laptop. "Here it is. In Hebrew, Spanish, and English. 3 experts in Jewish law who live in Mexico and are internationally certified." Eli reviewed the document, then looked at Samuel. "Where did you find this woman?" he asked in Hebrew, thinking Aisha wouldn't understand the tone of astonishment. "I found her cleaning my office," Samuel replied with a smile. "You're joking." "Not at all." Eli turned to Aisha. "Is that true? You were working in cleaning?" Aisha lifted her chin. "Yes, sir, 15 years. But I never stopped studying. Your job doesn't define who you are. It only defines what you do to survive while you pursue who you want to become." Eli went silent, clearly moved. "Mr. Rothstein," Aisha continued, "I understand it might be surprising for you to see someone like me in this position, a black woman, without an important last name, without connections, but I assure you my commitment to excellence and my respect for your culture are absolute." "It's not surprise," Eli said slowly. "It's humility. You remind me that I also came from nothing, that my grandfather was also ignored because of how he looked, and that talent shows up in the most unexpected places when we have the eyes to see it." The negotiation continued. By the end of the day, not only did they sign the original $300 million contract, but Eli proposed 2 additional projects worth another $200 million. When Eli said goodbye, he told Aisha in Hebrew, "My company in Tel Aviv has operations in 10 countries. We're looking for someone to head Latin American relations. If you ever want a change of scenery, call me." He handed her his personal card. Samuel watched the whole exchange with a proud smile. 6 months later, Aisha Thompson was in her own office on the 37th floor, coordinating projects in Israel, Argentina, Brazil, and the United States. Her salary had changed her life. Her 3 children were in good schools. She rented an apartment in a safe neighborhood, and for the first time in years, she could sleep without worrying about tomorrow's bills. But the most important thing was something money couldn't buy: dignity. One Friday afternoon, Samuel called her into his office. "Aisha, I need to ask you a favor." "Whatever you need, Mr. Goldstein. Next month I'm giving a lecture at Tec de Monterrey on business leadership. I want you to come with me, and I want you to tell your story." Aisha felt a knot in her stomach. "Sir, I'm not sure if..." There are hundreds of young people graduating, thinking they need connections or fancy last names to succeed. They need to hear that hard work and dedication still matter. That talent can come from anywhere, even from a black woman who cleaned offices, especially from her. Aisha agreed. The day of the conference, the auditorium was full. 500 students, professors, entrepreneurs. Aisha walked onto the stage in her professional suit, head held high, and she told her story. She spoke about growing up poor in Veracruz, about learning Hebrew in a community library, about 15 years spent cleaning floors while she kept studying, about the note that changed her life. She spoke about racism, about closed doors, about every moment someone judged her without knowing her. But she also spoke about resilience, about never stopping learning, about holding on to dignity, even when the world tells you you're worth nothing. When she finished, the auditorium erupted in applause. Students stood, some cried. Afterward, an indigenous young woman approached Aisha. "Mrs. Thompson, I'm from Oaxaca. My family is poor. I'm here on a scholarship. Sometimes I feel like I don't belong, like everyone looks at me differently." Aisha took her hands. "Listen to me, sweetheart. You belong exactly where your talent takes you, not where others think you should be. And every time someone judges you for where you come from or how you look, remember that says everything about them, nothing about you." The young woman hugged Aisha, crying. That evening, back in her office, Aisha found an envelope on her desk. Inside was a photo, her wearing her cleaning uniform 6 months earlier, taken without her noticing, and a note from Samuel, for you to never forget where you come from, not because you should feel shame, but because you should feel pride. You walked the hardest path and went farther than most. That is greatness. Aisha pinned the photo in her office. Next to it she placed a new one, herself in her professional suit at the conference, smiling with confidence. 2 versions of the same woman, both valuable, both worthy. Because yes, the clothes had changed, but she had always been the same, brilliant, determined, invaluable. The world had simply taken 15 years to notice. And you, how many Aishas have you ignored? How many times have you decided someone isn't worth your attention because they work in something lowly, or because their skin is different? This story teaches us a brutal truth. Talent is everywhere. Opportunity is not. Every day you walk past brilliant people who clean, serve, carry, build. People who speak languages you don't speak, who know things you don't know, who have overcome hardships you've never faced, but you don't see them, because you decided their uniform or their skin tells you everything you need to know. You're wrong. Today I challenge you, look at the person who cleans your office, ask their name, their story. Maybe you'll discover they speak Hebrew, or Mandarin, or that they have a talent your company desperately needs. Or maybe you'll simply discover they're a human being who deserves to be seen, and that, my friend, is already enough. Are you ready to open your eyes before it's too late?